Let's get started with our first news. Tom Aspinall has been warned to not push things too far with Dana White. In a recent YouTube video, Tom Aspinall made it clear that he wasn't happy with the comments Dana White made after UFC 321. The UFC president suggested that the champion didn't want to continue, which instantly sparked speculation that White was taking a subtle jab at Aspinall. Tom didn't go into too much detail, but he shared his frustration and made it obvious that the situation didn't sit well with him. Shortly after, former UFC champion Henry Cejudo stepped in with some strong advice. In an interview with Shock MMA, Cejudo explained that he had faced similar situations before, and he understood exactly why Aspinall felt the way he did. But he also made it very clear that arguing with the UFC boss is never a good idea. According to Cejudo, fighters need to understand the difference between their role and Dana's role. As he put it, the biggest thing Tommy needs to remember is that Dana is a promoter, and he's a fighter. Dana White has never fought in the cage before. Cejudo went on to share a personal story. He said there were times when he was angry at Dana too. He talked about beating Marlon Moraes while dealing with a torn labrum and fighting through a sprained ankle. But even with all that, he understood that an injury to the eye is totally different. Still, Cejudo stressed that taking anything personally from Dana is a mistake. At the end of the day, fighters are employees under the boss, and starting a fight with him never ends well. He added that Dana says whatever he feels because that's what makes him a strong promoter. Whether people like it or not, Dana doesn't hold back. And Cejudo actually appreciates that honesty. He explained that the raw, unfiltered approach is part of what makes the fight business so intense and unpredictable. That's just how combat sports work, and sometimes it gets messy. But Cejudo's main message to Aspinall was simple: stay focused, don't get emotional, and don't start a battle you can't win. That's boxing, man. Move on to another news. Khabib recently shared the full story of his chaotic phone conversation with Tony Ferguson during their UFC 209 conference call, a moment that instantly became one of the wildest verbal exchanges in MMA history. What made the call unforgettable was how Khabib's calm, almost ice-cold tone pushed Tony further and further into full rage. Every time Khabib answered with that steady, composed voice, it seemed to hit Tony even harder, turning the entire call into a verbal storm. The exchange started when Khabib told him, "You have fake belt. Tony, fake belt." That one line triggered an explosive reaction. Tony fired back, saying the belt looked real to him, and he didn't care about all the noise people made around it. He went off about people floating Khabib's boat, about Reebok sponsorships, and said that all the things Khabib had were things he didn't give a single damn about. Tony insisted he had his own path, his own goals, and he never needed anything from anyone. Khabib, staying completely composed, hit back with a sarcastic offer. He told Tony he could call Reebok and ask them to give him a contract if he wanted. He even joked about how they make very good shoes now and that he could order some for Tony. He asked, "What size you have? Please let me know. 9? 10? The controlled delivery made it even more brutal, and Tony snapped, threatening that he'd get a hold of him soon enough. But Khabib didn't stop. He kept poking with that dry, razor-sharp humor. He told Tony that Reebok could even make him custom shoes with interim champ Tony Ferguson written on them if he wanted. Tony, now completely heated, yelled that he didn't care, that he couldn't even hear Khabib because he was working out while talking on the phone. And Khabib instantly shot back, questioning how he could be working out if he was literally on the phone yelling the entire time. He said he didn't understand why Tony kept bringing up Reebok, why he was so bothered by it, and why he was losing control over something so simple. The entire call showed the difference in their personalities. Khabib was calm, steady, and almost surgical with his words, while Tony spiraled deeper into frustration with every line. It became one of those iconic MMA moments where both fighters revealed exactly who they were, not inside the cage, but through pure, unfiltered energy. Move on to another news. Things took an unexpectedly hilarious turn at Thursday's UFC 323 press conference when Merab and Petr Yan shared one of the funniest back-and-forth moments we've seen in a while. The tension between them was already high, but Merab brought a level of humor that instantly shifted the energy. With a straight face and full confidence, he invited Jan to join him in a jacuzzi after their fight. The crowd reacted immediately, but Jan shut it down without hesitation. Merab looked at him and said, "Hey, you are welcome in my jacuzzi. You want to come jacuzzi after?" It was delivered with that playful tone Merab is known for, but Jan wasn't buying into it for a second. Jan replied, "You have plenty of people in your jacuzzi. I don't need to be there." That alone got laughs, but Merab pushed the moment even further. He teased him, saying that after the fight, it might actually be good for him to relax. Jan shot back with a jab of his own, saying Merab should have girls in his jacuzzi instead of the guys he usually has. But Merab didn't back down. He simply shrugged and said it didn't matter if it was girls or boys, they could all mix, and that it was no problem at all. Then he softened it by saying, "Okay, look, just boys," keeping the joke going. Jan countered again, saying all he ever saw in Merab's jacuzzi videos were nothing but guys. He added that he had never even seen Merab with a girl before. The press room broke into laughter, but Merab kept smiling, letting the moment play out. What happened next added another layer to the comedy. Jan mentioned the viral video of Merab diving headfirst into a frozen lake. Jan said all of Merab's antics were funny, even if he wasn't trying to be funny. But the freezing lake dive, that one stood out to him the most. It was the perfect closing shot in their exchange. Merab, still smiling, took the jokes in stride. The whole interaction showed the strange but entertaining chemistry between the two rivals. Instead of a heated face-off filled with threats, the press conference turned into a comedic scene, full of personality, confidence, and perfectly timed jabs. Moments like this remind fans why fight week energy is so unpredictable, and why these rivalries can bring entertainment both inside and outside the cage. Move on to another news. Henry Cejudo has opened up about his future in a way that feels more serious than ever before. Despite retiring multiple times, Cejudo says he truly means it this time, and he's dead serious that his upcoming fight against Peyton Talba tomorrow will be his final walk to the octagon. What made headlines was his admission that Dana White might cut him from the UFC after this fight, and he sounded fully prepared for that possibility. Cejudo explained why he even chose to come back in the first place, when he already felt like he left the sport on top. He said it was all about family, legacy, and the desire to create a better life for his kids. He admitted he didn't need to return financially because he had been making great money. But this was the fastest way to reach the goals he has for his family now. Everything, he said, circles back to what he can do for his children, how he can protect them, and how he can give them opportunities he never had growing up. He reflected on whether he had any regrets, and he confessed that maybe coming back could be one of them. In wrestling, he felt the same way. He said he gave so much to the sport that he ended up hating it. He described being at the Olympic Games, feeling the pressure, thinking, what if I don't win? The fear, the stress, the weight of expectation were overwhelming. And then he won. And in that moment, his reaction was simple: goodbye. He meant it then, and he says he means it now. Cejudo talked about being a conqueror, not someone who needs to hang around for years proving the same thing over and over. Captain Eric keeps telling him he still has it and should fight 10 more times, but Cejudo said that Captain Eric doesn't feel what he feels inside. To Cejudo, there's a time and place for everything, and he believes his time is nearly done. He emphasized the responsibility he feels as a father. He said he doesn't want his kids growing up with that fear of knowing their father is out there fighting. He remembers being a kid in a rough neighborhood, watching gang members fight, feeling his heart pound with fear and confusion. He doesn't want any version of that for his children. He acknowledged that fans don't buy it. They've heard his retirements before. They expect him to come back again. But he said this time it's different. I think Dana would cut me due to this, he said. To him, that possibility makes everything even more real. Move on to another news. Renato Moicano has given his thoughts on the surprising matchup between Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett, and his prediction is definitely going to raise eyebrows. Moicano couldn't believe the UFC booked this fight in the first place. He said the moment he heard Gaethje versus Pimblett, his first reaction was simple disbelief. What is going on, bro? Why is that the matchup? He said he didn't understand it and expected a totally different opponent for Paddy at this stage of his career. Moicano pointed out something that fans have been arguing about since the fight announcement. He said if you actually go back and look at Paddy's UFC run, specifically his last 3 opponents, the combined record is shocking. According to Moicano, those fighters were coming in with a combined losing record of 0-13. Not a single one of them was coming off a win. He repeated it to make the point clear. 0 wins, 13 losses combined. And because of that, Moicano said it's obvious that Paddy is getting what he called an undeserved shot against a top-tier lightweight like Gaethje. Even with all of that said, Moicano didn't turn this into a hit piece on Paddy. Instead, he said it is what it is. The fight is happening, and the only thing left is to break down the matchup. Moicano called it a tough matchup and said most people are going to give the same take he's about to give, because it's the most common way fans and analysts see this fight playing out. He said if Gaethje does not stop Paddy early, then the fight swings heavily in Paddy's favor. 5 rounds is a long time, and Moicano believes that if Paddy survives the early storm, his conditioning, pace, and scrappiness become major factors. Moicano even went a step further. He said he thinks Paddy will beat Justin Gaethje, not because Gaethje isn't dangerous, not because Paddy has proven himself against elite competition, but because Moicano believes the stylistic mix, the 5-round format, and the chaos Paddy brings to fights could overwhelm Gaethje if Gaethje doesn't put him away quickly. He said he expects most people to disagree, but he's leaning toward Paddy pulling off the upset. Moicano wrapped it up by saying that, whether people like it or not, this is the fight we're getting, and he believes Paddy Pimblett will walk out with the win over Justin Gaethje if the fight goes past those critical opening minutes. Move on to another news. Joaquin Buckley has made it clear he thinks Carlos Prates is easy money, and he didn't hesitate for a second when explaining why. Buckley said he's not the type of fighter who slows down as the rounds go on. If anything, he gets stronger. He emphasized that he picks up the pace every single round, and that's exactly why he sees Prates as an easy matchup. In his words, Prates is an easy money fight for me, and he said it with full confidence. Like, he truly believes Prates won't be able to keep up once the pressure starts to build. But then Buckley shifted gears and talked about something most fans weren't expecting. He said he's trying to change, trying not to talk reckless about every opponent the way he used to. He even caught himself mid-sentence, acknowledging that he's been calling out fighters too aggressively and said he's working on being better. And that's when he brought up Ian Gary. Buckley said he actually respects Ian Gary now. And that's not something you hear every day in the welterweight division. He said out of all the fighters at 170, out of all, as he put it, these hoes, Ian Gary is the only one who has never ducked a fight. Buckley went on to explain that Gary has never avoided smoke from anybody. He even signed a fight with Buckley, and although the matchup didn't happen because Gary got a better opportunity, Buckley said he doesn't blame him. He admitted he would have taken the same opportunity if he were in Gary's position because it was the smarter career move. He repeated that he's not going to say Gary ducked him, and instead doubled down on the idea that Gary has always stepped up. And to Buckley, that earns respect. He said Gary is out here doing exactly what a contender should do: taking fights, staying active, staying sharp, and climbing the ladder the right way. Buckley actually gave him credit, saying, Ian Gary though, man, he doing his job right. It was one of those rare moments where a fighter known for trash talk pauses to show genuine respect for someone in the same division. But Buckley made sure the message stayed clear. Even if he's learning to respect fighters like Gary, he's still confident, still hungry, and still believes that Carlos Prates is easy money for him. Move on to another news. The S3XL assault lawsuit filed in 2023 against Conor has now been dropped, closing a long and heated chapter that's followed the former 2-division UFC champion for nearly a year. A new court filing made public on Tuesday confirmed that the unnamed accuser, identified only as Jane Doe, voluntarily dismissed the lawsuit with prejudice, meaning she cannot bring the same claim again. The court accepted the dismissal, and by Wednesday the case was officially closed. The lawsuit had accused Conor of assaulting a woman in a bathroom during a Miami Heat game at the NBA Finals. When the allegations first surfaced, police conducted an investigation, but ultimately no criminal charges were ever filed. Throughout the entire ordeal, Conor strongly denied the accusations, calling them completely false and insisting he had done nothing wrong. Now, almost 11 months later, the civil case has reached its end. According to Conor's attorney, Barbara Lane, the accuser changed lawyers multiple times over the course of 2 years, and the story she presented was fake from the very beginning. Lane stated that this dismissal with prejudice only confirms what they argued from day one, that the claims were baseless and the truth was always on their side. The lawsuit had cast a shadow over Conor's public image, especially during a period when fans were eagerly waiting for updates on his long-anticipated UFC return. This legal victory now removes a major obstacle from his path, and supporters are already expecting him to shift his focus fully back to fighting. For Conor, this marks a significant moment, closing a case that followed him relentlessly through headlines, social media debates, and ongoing speculation. With the lawsuit gone, attention now moves back to what comes next for one of the biggest stars in combat sports. Whether he returns to the octagon soon or continues building his brand outside the cage, this dismissal gives him a much clearer runway moving forward. Conor's camp is treating the outcome as a complete vindication, emphasizing that the process has finally delivered what they believed was inevitable. As this chapter ends, the MMA world is already switching gears toward the next major storyline.